I got to tell you. The Chicago Sky are one of the worst basketball teams I've ever seen. And today, their coach literally just waved the white flag. He quit. He literally just said, Phoenix Mercury, destroy us even more than you're destroying us right now.
This wasn't just a loss. This was a televised meltdown. A collapse so epic, so chaotic, that it might go down as one of the worst performances in WNBA history. The Chicago Sky didn't just get beat by the Phoenix Mercury, they got exposed from. The first whistle to the final buzzer, it wasn't a game, it was a demolition, and now, the questions are piling up. Is Angel Reese really the star Chicago hoped for? Is Tyler Marsh still the right guy to lead this team? Or are we watching a franchise come completely undone live on national TV? Let's break it all down.
Oh my God, this team is garbage. Golly. Man, Angel Reese with a triple single, 9 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. She was a minus 25.
Angel Reese, part 43. Let's get it. National TV stinker. Uh-oh. For tantrum. Bang! She only took one shot in the game. It's because her teammates refused to give her the ball. On the bright side, at least she has a podcast. Am I right? Bang! Sure, just take your sweet old time getting back on D, huh? Know where to be. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Look at that. Team player. Put her to the All-Star game.
Let's start with the cold, brutal facts. The Chicago Sky are 3-9. That's not just a rough start, it's a full-blown crisis. One of the worst opening stretches in franchise history. And it's not just about the losses, it's about how. They're losing. This team isn't fighting until the final buzzer. They're not showing flashes of potential. They're not even playing competitive basketball. They're imploding slowly, publicly, and painfully. And if you look at the numbers, they're not just bad. They're historically bad. The Sky currently average 18.9 turnovers per game. Let that sink in. That's not just sloppiness, that's dysfunction. That's the kind of number you expect from a rec league team full of strangers, not from professional athletes wearing WNBA jerseys. It's as if they're running their offense in the dark with boxing gloves on, missed passes, lazy outlets, bad reads, panic decisions under pressure. And when you pair those constant giveaways with their league worst defensive rating, a jaw-dropping 113.6, you've got the perfect recipe for disaster. Think about that. They're giving the ball away nearly 19 times a game and letting the other team shoot lights out from deep. That's not just a lack of chemistry. That's a roster with no identity, no leadership, and no answers. It's a franchise stuck in a nosedive and nobody seems to know how to pull up. And yet, somehow, things were about to get even worse. Next up, the game that broke everything. June 2025, a nationally televised WNBA matchup. Millions of fans tuning in. A primetime opportunity for the Chicago Sky to silence critics, prove doubters wrong, and maybe, just maybe, turn the season around. Instead, they detonated in front of the entire country. The Sky didn't just lose to the Phoenix Mercury, they got steamrolled. And they did it on live television, where there was no hiding, no spinning the narrative, no we'll get them next time. This wasn't a bad performance. This was a humiliation. It started right out of the gate, 31-8 in the first quarter. That's not a basketball score, that's a red flag. The Sky couldn't hit a shot, couldn't stop the bleeding, and most importantly, couldn't seem to care. Phoenix came in focused, firing on all cylinders. Meanwhile, Chicago looked like they'd just rolled out of bed. The Mercury smelled blood and they pounced. They forced turnovers, pushed tempo, and lit up the scoreboard. Sammy Whitcomb hit 5 threes in the second quarter alone, playing like she was at a carnival booth, not a professional arena. By halftime, the Mercury were toying with them. By the third quarter, it was a clinic. Phoenix ended the night shooting a blistering 56.5% from the field and 57.1% from beyond the arc. Let that number marinate for a second. Those are the kind of stats you usually only see in video games when you're playing on rookie mode. But this This was real. This was the Chicago Sky turning in one of the worst defensive performances of the season on the league's biggest stage. And it wasn't just the defense that crumbled. The offense was even more chaotic. The Sky turned the ball over 21 times. That's 21 extra possessions gifted to an already red-hot Mercury team. Even basic offensive sets fell apart. There was no structure, no leadership, no rhythm. It looked less like professional basketball and more like a group of strangers desperately trying to figure out which way was up. And as the score ballooned and the boos rained down, something even more shocking happened. The Chicago Sky didn't adjust, they didn't fight, they didn't rally. Instead, their coach hit eject on the entire game, and what he did next sent shockwaves through the WNBA. Up next, Coach Marsh waves the white flag and benches the entire starting lineup. This is the moment that turned a disaster into a full-on franchise embarrassment. Midway through the third quarter, with the Sky trailing by 25 points and the game slipping further into blowout territory, Coach Tyler Marsh did something no one expected. He benched every single starter. Angel Reese? Gone. Camila Cardoso? Gone. The faces of the franchise, the players brought in to revive the team, suddenly yanked from the game, not for rest, not for foul trouble, but for what can only be described as damage control. Now, to be clear, this wasn't load management. This wasn't strategic. This was a man hitting the panic button live on TV. Marsh didn't call a timeout to regroup. He didn't try to spark a comeback. He didn't rally his team with passion or fire. He folded. It was the basketball equivalent of waving a giant white flag while millions watched. A visual declaration of "we give up," and in that moment, it was clear. This wasn't coaching. This was survival. When Marsh was asked about it post-game, he gave the usual polished response: "We're just managing minutes during a back-to-back stretch." But let's be honest, that's not what this was. You don't pull your starters in a nationally televised game unless you've run out of hope. We saw his face on the sidelines. It wasn't focused. It wasn't fiery. It was blank, hollow, defeated. The man who was hired to fix this franchise looked like someone counting the days until he could update his LinkedIn. And the players? They weren't confused, they were embarrassed, because this wasn't just a substitution. This was a very public message from their own head coach. "I don't believe in you anymore." It's one thing to lose a game, it's another to surrender mid-battle and do it under the brightest lights the league can offer. The fallout was immediate. Fans roasted the team. Pundits called it one of the worst coaching decisions in league history. Even WNBA veterans chimed in, saying they'd never seen anything like it. And in the middle of that storm stood Angel Reese, silent on the court, loud on the mic, because what she said after the game took the circus to a whole new level. Coming up, Angel Reese responds to the disaster, and her words left fans stunned. When Angel Reese entered the WNBA, the hype was astronomical. She was supposed to be the face of the Chicago Sky's rebuild, the star, the engine, the reason fans would pack the arena again. A competitor, a trash talker, a rebounding machine, but now she's being talked about for all the wrong reasons. Against the Phoenix Mercury, Angel Reese put up one of the worst performances of her young professional career. 9 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 shot attempt. A -25 impact on the court. Let's stop and ask the obvious. How does your franchise player only take 1 shot in an entire game? And no, this wasn't a case of being doubled or locked down. This was her own team refusing to pass her the ball. This was a statement, intentional or not, that Angel Reese wasn't trusted to make an impact. That's not just bad. That's humiliating, and the most shocking part? Reese didn't seem fazed. Instead of addressing the elephant in the room, she stepped in front of the media and delivered a TED Talk on leadership, effort, and trusting the process. She talked about poise, about staying grounded, about being a role model. But what fans heard was delusion. This wasn't accountability. This wasn't reflection. This was a player trying to sell optimism while her house was on fire. Let's be real. She's averaging 9.1 points per game on 30.9% shooting. She's connecting on just 28% of her layups from point-blank range. Those aren't numbers you expect from a WNBA star. Those are the stats of a struggling rookie trying to find their place and failing. But when you pair those numbers with a mountain of post-game confidence, it starts to feel disconnected. Fans want humility, growth, ownership. Instead, they're getting rehearsed positivity while the team burns in the background. And maybe worst of all, she's not doing herself any favors with body language either. Watch the games closely, you'll see it. Hands on hips. Slow rotations on defense, jogging back in transition. Shrugging when teammates don't pass her the ball. The hunger we saw in college nowhere to be found. She's being outworked by veterans, outplayed by rookies, and out-hustled by players half her size. And yet, the post-game narrative remains the same. I'm improving. I'm leading. I'm locked in. But improvement doesn't show up in interviews, it shows up in box scores. And right now, the numbers are screaming something else. Coming up next, while Reese is spinning inspiration, Camila Cardoso quietly delivers a dominant performance, then gets benched anyway. While the cameras were focused on Angel Reese, and the headlines zeroed in on Tyler Marsh's decision to bench the starters, Camila Cardoso quietly did something that should have made the front page. She dominated in a game where everything was falling apart, where the Sky were coughing up turnovers, missing layups, and looking like a disorganized mess. Cardoso was the one bright spot. Her final stat line, 17 points, 7 of 9 shooting, efficient, smart, calm under pressure. That's 77.8% from the field. For those keeping score, she didn't force shots. She didn't take bad angles. She didn't chase the spotlight. She just did her job and did it extremely well. And what was her reward? She got BENCHED right alongside Angel Reese, right alongside every other starter. And just like that, her best performance of the season was her race swallowed whole by the flaming disaster happening around her. If you watched closely, you could feel her frustration every time Angel Reese dribbled into traffic, every time the ball failed to rotate her way, every time the game plan broke down into isolation chaos. Cardoso's eyes went straight to the bench, like she was pleading, "Get me out of this." Because she wasn't just being ignored, she was being wasted. This is a 6 feet 7 inches center with a polished inside game, elite finishing ability, and a high basketball IQ, and she's stuck watching teammates shoot 30% from the field while she barely gets touches. And the few times the Sky actually ran plays for her, she delivered clean footwork, soft touch, great timing. Everything you want in a future star, but instead of being the centerpiece of Chicago's rebuild, she's become collateral damage, caught between a struggling coaching staff and a locker room lacking chemistry. This should be her team. She's playing like the most consistent and efficient player on the roster, but she's being treated like an afterthought. And it begs the question, how long before Cardoso starts looking at the exit? Because when your best player is balling out and still getting benched like she's part of the problem, that's not a personnel issue, that's a franchise failure. Up next, the post-game circus continues. Angel Reese grabs the mic again, but her words only make things worse. When the final buzzer sounded, the Chicago Sky had been dismantled, blown out, humiliated, nationally embarrassed, and yet, somehow, the real spectacle was just getting started off the court. Because after one of the ugliest performances in franchise history, Angel Reese walked into the post-game press conference, and gave a speech like her team had just lost in triple overtime after a heroic fight. "I don't complain. I just work. I come in every day to be better than I was the day before. I know my teammates trust me." Poised, polished, almost presidential. The problem, none of it matched what we just saw on the floor, because what the world saw was this: a player who scored 9 points, took 1 shot, and grabbed 2 rebounds in a game her team lost by 30. A player who spent long stretches of the game jogging back on defense and watching smaller opponents rip rebounds out of the air. A player who keeps preaching accountability while playing like she's immune to it. And this isn't just one game. Reese is shooting under 31% from the field for the season. Her layup conversion rate, a shocking 28%. Let that sit, she's missing more than 2 out of every 3 layups. That's not just bad, it's historically inefficient, but instead of facing that reality, she's spinning it. Words like growth, leadership, and process are thrown around like magic dust, and maybe that would work if the numbers weren't completely contradicting her. There's a disconnect that fans are starting to notice, because the version of Angel Reese we hear in interviews, that version is focused, driven, unstoppable. The version on the court? Lost, inefficient, and clearly struggling with confidence. And to be fair, every rookie hits rough patches. But what's different here is the gap between perception and production. It's one thing to struggle. It's another thing to struggle while pretending you're thriving. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is watching this unfold and asking, where's the fire? Where's the fight? Because I just work sounds great. But if you're getting benched on national TV and missing layups like they're half-court shots, something's not working. And here's the part that really stings. Fans aren't just upset about the stats, they're upset because they wanted to believe Angel Reese was supposed to be different. She brought energy, swagger, confidence, a huge following, but now that confidence is starting to sound like deflection, and when leadership becomes performance art, people stop listening. Up next, Tyler Marsh was supposed to be the franchise fixer, but his eyes told a different story as the sky collapsed. Tyler Marsh was brought to Chicago as the solution, the guy with rings, the strategist with pedigree. The former assistant under Becky Hammon during the Las Vegas Aces championship run. He came in wearing the label of franchise fixer, but now he looks like a man trapped in a job he no longer believes in. Let's rewind. Marsh didn't just inherit a bad team, he was handed a project. Angel Reese, a college superstar but raw in WNBA terms. Camila Cardoso, a promising big with limited pro experience, a roster of mismatched parts, no proven scorers, and no clear leader on the floor. And what was he expected to do? Turn this chaos into a playoff team? Spoiler, that didn't happen. Instead, Marsh now finds himself front and center in a disaster spiraling out of control. His decision to bench the starters against the Phoenix Mercury wasn't just controversial, it was symbolic. Because in that moment, he wasn't coaching. He was conceding. No adjustments, no fight. Just a quiet retreat as the scoreboard grew more painful to look at. And when the camera zoomed in, what did we see? A man slouched on the bench, staring into the void. His players were flailing. His offense was stagnant. His defense was non-existent. And Marsh looked like he had nothing left to give. Sure, he gave the post-game quotes. We're protecting players. It's about development. We need to build trust and chemistry. But those sound bites? They're not fooling anyone, because when your team is down 30 on national television and your franchise star has taken just one shot, you've lost more than a game. You've lost control. Even Marsh's comments about turnovers came off as hollow. We've had more possessions than other teams, but we keep giving them back. Translation? My team is allergic to ball security, and I'm this close to losing my mind. This isn't the guy we saw in Vegas. In Vegas, Marsh was the calm within the storm, strategic, confident, trusted, but in Chicago, he's become the face of a collapse. Every game feels like a new version of the same nightmare. Slow starts, no identity, defensive breakdowns, and Marsh sitting silently, offering no answers. And now, fans are starting to ask the hard questions. Is he even the right man for the job? Because at some point, pedigree doesn't matter. Rings don't matter. Results do. And right now, the only thing Marsh is delivering is disappointment. Next up, how the Chicago Sky ended up with one of the worst rosters in the league and why it was doomed from the start. You can blame Angel Reese's poor shooting. You can question Tyler Marsh's coaching decisions. But if you really want to understand why the Chicago Sky are collapsing, you have to start at the top, because this roster, it was built to fail. Let's break it down. The Sky entered this season with no true point guard, No elite scorer, no floor general to organize the offense, and yet somehow expected to compete in a league full of sharpshooters, elite defenders, and battle-tested veterans. The result? A lineup that can't shoot, can't pass, can't defend, and turns the ball over more than anyone else in the league. They're averaging 18.9 turnovers per game, practically gift-trapping extra possessions to every opponent. For context, elite WNBA teams hover around 13 or 14 turnovers. The Sky? They're handing out 5 to 6 extra possessions a night, like they're doing charity work. And it's not just the sloppiness with the ball. Their defense is historically bad. Chicago currently owns the worst defensive rating in the league, an abysmal 113.6. They're allowing nearly 95 points per game. And get this, they haven't held a single opponent under 90. Opponents are shooting 45% from 3, with wide open looks like it's practice. No effort on closeouts. No communication on switches, no intensity in the paint. Every game is a green light for the other team, and that's just the numbers. Let's talk about the vibe. There's no fire, no leadership, no trust on the court. Players look confused, rotations break down constantly. Nobody seems to know their role, and it all started with poor roster construction. They drafted Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, two talented but raw bigs who need development, spacing, and veteran support to thrive, but instead of surrounding them with experienced guards, floor spacers, and a stable system, they paired them with erratic shooters and zero perimeter defense. It's like building a house out of matchsticks and wondering why it caught fire, even when 1 or 2 players step up like Cardoso's 17-point game. There's no structure to support that momentum. There's no game plan, no chemistry. It's a team made of parts that don't fit, and now the cracks are showing. Worse yet, players like Cardoso are quietly shining in the chaos, but going unnoticed, while others like Reese are being handed the spotlight regardless of performance. That dynamic is already starting to breed tension, and if something doesn't change soon, Chicago won't just be losing games, they'll be losing their locker room, because you can't keep selling progress when the product on the floor looks like this. Up next, how public backlash, fan frustration, and viral humiliation have turned the Sky into the WNBA's biggest punchline. The scoreboard was already brutal. The stats were ugly, the on-court product almost unwatchable, but what really sealed it for the Chicago Sky wasn't just the loss. It was the reaction. The internet didn't just criticize them, it clowned them across Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube. Fans, analysts, and even former players were tearing the Sky apart. Memes were flying. Clips of Angel Reese walking back on defense went viral. Tyler Marsh's empty stare on the sideline became a punchline. And Cardoso's efficiency was buried under the avalanche of chaos surrounding her team. What was supposed to be a rebuilding year is now a full-blown WNBA spectacle, and not in a good way. You'd think this kind of blowout would stay in the sports news cycle for 24 hours and then fade, but not with Chicago, not with this game. Because it wasn't just a bad performance, it was a nationally televised implosion on primetime TV, with all eyes watching, and now fans are asking the obvious: why is this team even on TV? The answer, of course, is Angel Reese. Her name brings ratings, her college fame brings clicks. And in theory, she was supposed to bring energy, rebounding, leadership. Instead, she's bringing triple singles and delusional post-game quotes about how the team is growing. Viewers are tired of hearing speeches about grind and focus after shooting 30% from the field. And the numbers don't lie. The Sky are now dead last in nearly every major efficiency category: turnovers, defensive rating, three-point defense, close-range shooting. They're not just bad, they're historically dysfunctional. And when you combine all of that with the team's attitude, the forced optimism, the shrugging after blowouts, the disconnect between reality and messaging, fans feel insulted. WNBA fans are passionate. They support young talent, they root for rebuilds. But what they don't tolerate is empty talk with no accountability. And that's exactly what the Sky have been offering. Meanwhile, across the league, other teams are battling, rookies are stepping up. Franchises with half the talent are fighting every possession, and the Chicago Sky? They're stuck in a loop of excuses, turnovers, and bad optics. They've gone from a team with potential to a walking cautionary tale. The vibe right now isn't just bad season, it's laughingstock. And if something doesn't change soon, this won't just be a tough year. It'll be the kind of collapse that sticks in WNBA history. Next up, we bring it all home how the Sky went from a team full of hope to the league's biggest cautionary tale. So here we are, the Chicago Sky, once a franchise full of hope, young talent, and buzzworthy headlines, have officially crossed the line. From rebuilding to free-falling, this wasn't supposed to happen. Tyler Marsh came in with championship DNA, Angel Reese came in with college stardom, a massive following, and a chip on her shoulder. Camila Cardoso was the big with the soft hands and high ceiling. The roster? Unpolished, yes, but brimming with potential, but instead of growing, they're crumbling, and it's not just the scoreboard anymore. It's the optics. It's the attitude. It's the complete mismatch between what we see on the court and what we're told off of it. You can't say trust the process when your team is down 30 on national television. You can't sell grind and leadership when your franchise player gets one shot in a full game. You can't hide behind buzzwords when your coach pulls the starters like he's quitting the season before the All-Star break. This is more than just a bad stretch. This is a team with no identity, no chemistry, no direction. They don't know who they are. They don't know who their leader is, and worst of all, they're pretending like it's all part of the plan, but fans see through it. The media sees through it. Even some of the players are starting to look like they see through it too. The post-game interviews keep talking about progress, but every stat, every blown defensive assignment, every sloppy turnover tells a different story. Angel Reese can keep saying she's working, but until that work shows up in the box score and on the floor, all the talk in the world won't save her from the growing criticism. Tyler Marsh can keep protecting his players, but if he's not going to coach them through the storm, someone else will. And as for the Sky organization, if they don't hit reset hard, they're not just risking another losing season. They're risking losing the fans, losing the locker room, losing credibility, because the truth is this: the Chicago Sky aren't just bad right now, they're the WNBA's biggest what went wrong story. And unless something changes fast, this won't just be remembered as a tough year. It'll go down as one of the most spectacular implosions in WNBA history. The story of a team that had all the tools to grow and chose to fall apart instead.